Hello, welcome back to Super Recap. Today, I'm going to describe Ugly Me, a Chilean romantic comedy film. Watch out for spoilers ahead. Amanda is a stunningly attractive woman who lives in Santiago, Chile. She is employed by an architectural business and excels at her work. Amanda phones her boyfriend Pablo one afternoon. She wants to accompany him to his buddy Fernanda's birthday celebration. Amanda is unaware that her boyfriend is cosplaying as a kitten in Fernanda's bedroom. Fernanda distracts Pablo while they converse on the phone, causing him to hang up quickly. They mistakenly contact Amanda again a few seconds later, and she hears them moaning and meowing. She doesn't waste any time storming Fernanda's house with a shotgun. Pablo claims he was kidnapped after they were apprehended, but Amanda isn't so gullible as to believe him. She shoots him in the crotch to make sure he never cheats on anybody else. In the next scene, Amanda is speaking with a psychotherapist about anger control. She has no sorrow for what she did. In fact, if she were in a similar scenario, she is certain she would do it again. According to the psychiatrist, anyone with her level of anger issues should be institutionalized. Amanda's perspective on things alters as a result of the information, and she immediately feels bad about what she has done. She is released after convincing the doctor that nothing similar will happen again. The matter has reached the police station, and hence Amanda's workplace. She tells her supervisor that she was betrayed by two of her closest friends. He considers her position in the company and ultimately decides to terminate her. Amanda has decided to leave Santiago. She packs her belongings and relocates to Valparaiso. Her brother has an abandoned house where she can stay for 6 months. She also believes she will be able to find a good career in the city. Amanda's primary concern is that she will be sought by guys. After what occurred in the past time, she doesn't want to date or fall in love with anyone. A lovely young lady like her, on the other hand, is never left alone. She goes to the church to relax, and there she becomes friends with the pastor after telling him about all her issues. He also lives alone because he has no direct family. He invites her to see him whenever she wants someone to talk to. Amanda looks through a lot of job openings in the newspaper at home. All of them have lower qualifications and experience than she does. She chooses one at random, which happens to be an architectural firm similar to the one where she used to work. She then purchases an awful bodysuit, unsightly dentures, and artificial makeup, to look unattractive. She is unrecognizable after putting everything on, even to people she knew before. She goes to the firm for an interview in the next scene. Her supervisor, Max, interrogates her extensively and discovers that she has a husband and 2 sons. Amanda believes that her husband's story will make her lie more appealing to men and so minimize male approaches. Max does not require any authentication and hires her based on her prior experience. Amanda feels valid for the first time in her life because she knows her looks didn't bring her the job. Following that, Max introduces her to the team members and their respective tasks. First is Juan, a married man, who has 3 children, works full-time, and is pursuing his master's degree. Then there's Karen, a stunning young office worker who performs the least work yet is adored by all due to her beauty. Finally, an architect named Marcelo is introduced. He's the stereotypical womanizer who evaluates people based on their physical attractiveness. Working and bringing home a different woman every night is Marcelo's daily routine. When he first meets Amanda, he is immediately horrified by her because of her appearance. Amanda recognizes the type of man he is and silently curses his shallow thoughts. They caution each other to keep away from each other, not realizing that fate is about to entwine their destinies. Amanda is told about an ancient Telmex facility that their employer recently restored during their first meeting. They finished the project, however, there was some disruption in the building's internet access due to an unidentified structural issue. Amanda immediately identifies that it's due to a VP1 system glitch. Because Amanda is new to the job, Karen believes her engagement with the project will just create more complications as Karen herself wants to be the one to solve the problems. Max disagrees with her desire to be the one to solve the problem. Karen gets fired, and she immediately dislikes Amanda. Amanda has requested Marcelo and Juan to join her at the problem site and assist her. The men are displeased to be her aides, but they comply nevertheless. In the next scene, Amanda is working hard to figure out what's wrong, while Marcelo is bragging to Juan about his sexual exploits. Amanda claims that the railway station is causing the interference. They arrive at the place, where Marcelo and Juan are still talking while Amanda works. She finally realizes that the water channels that run directly beneath the structure are interfering with the waves. Amanda and Marcelo leave to examine the water channel, while Juan remains to keep an eye on the train's departure. Marcelo stays outside to check the frequency, leaving Amanda to her own devices to navigate the channels. She can't fit through one of the gates and has to remove her fat costume. Amanda's equipment stops operating when the squad is conversing via walkie-talkie. Marcelo arrives before she can get ready to check on her. Amanda flashes her torchlight in his face and explains that she had to remove her garments to avoid getting them filthy. Marcelo, fortunately for her, turns around and walks away. The 3 head to a pub for a couple of beers after a successful day at work. They travel in Amanda's automobile, which she has stuffed with toys for children to make it appear more realistic. Marcelo cracks sexual jokes at the pub once more, making the other two uncomfortable. Juan goes to study early, leaving Amanda and Marcelo behind. When Amanda is alone, she accuses him of being a superficial man. Marcelo enthusiastically agrees, claiming that children and marriage are the apexes of one's existence. Amanda pities him because he will never know true friendship and love that lasts longer than a night. Marcelo continues to describe his ideal girl's body and is an outspoken womanizer. This enrages Amanda since it reminds her of her ex-boyfriend. She can't stop thinking about his remarks even when she's at home. She realizes she looks just like the fantasy girl he described after removing the fat suit and wig. Amanda considers it her mission to teach Marcelo a lesson, and she returns to the club disguised as her true self. Marcelo is immediately drawn to her when they meet. He tries to take her somewhere private throughout the night. She seduces him and then rejects him, leaving him unsure if she is interested or not. She finally leaves after promising to meet him the next day. Amanda goes to the pastor the next day and tells him what she did. She will regret last night, the man says, because she will have to tell him the truth one day. Amanda, on the other hand, is adamant about teaching Marcelo a lesson. Marcelo brags in the office about meeting a girl in the club who is completely smitten with him. Amanda is aware that he is exaggerating, but she keeps her feelings to herself. Marcelo anticipates her arrival at the club in the evening. However, she texts him an hour later to say she won't be there. The next day, the same thing happened. Marcelo receives a text indicating they should meet at his location tomorrow after hours of waiting. He brags to Amanda at work about the new female who is so taken with him that she is visiting him at night. Amanda smiles as she listens to his tales, well aware that he is lying. Marcelo buys takeout and serves it to his date as though he prepared it himself. She appears shortly after and begins flirting with him. Things get hot after a time of eating and conversing. Marcelo is kissing her arm when she stops him and announces that she will be leaving. He is perplexed after she leaves since no woman has ever treated him in this manner. At work, he vents his frustrations on Amanda. He has begun to regard her as a true friend, something he has never done with any other woman in his life. Meanwhile, Karen feels envious of Marcelo since she has a crush on him. She constantly observes the pair in order to deduce what they are discussing. Later that day, she inquires about Amanda's children. Amanda realizes that if she does not show her children to the public, they will most likely mistrust her. As a result, she asks the pastor to arrange for two young boys to join her on a play date. She brings them to work the next day to establish that she is indeed a mother. Surprisingly, she notices Marcelo interacting with the youngest child. He has regularly stated that he despises children, which appears to be a falsehood. Amanda returns to his residence for a second date at night. This time, something about Marcelo is different. Rather than flirting, he puts more effort into getting to know her. They eventually make their way to his bed and begin making out. Things quickly heat up, but quickly cool down as Marcelo is unable to obtain an erection. Marcelo tells Amanda everything that transpired in the next scene. She advises him to make more of an effort to impress the new female, such as cooking for her rather than getting takeout. They visit him at his home and cook together. Marcelo is overjoyed since this is the first time he has had a female friend over to his place. They go to the terrace after dining and converse for a long time. Marcelo is terrified of commitment, Amanda says, but she assures him that he will find love one day. He leans in and kisses her unexpectedly. He immediately apologizes, but they can't ignore the flames in their hearts. Marcelo is chatting about his love life with Max in the next scene. Max suggests that he close his eyes and imagine a woman. Marcelo does not reveal who he saw, but he is certain that the girl is his true love. Amanda arrives at his house for their third date later that day. Marcelo surprises her by declaring his love for her. Amanda is aware that he is dishonest and is disappointed that he remains the same guy after everything they have discussed. She binds his hands to the bed frame and forces him to wear women's clothing. But, contrary to his expectations, she pulls out a knife and slices his stomach. After a few hours, the police come on the scene and release Marcelo. They understand the blood is artificial and that the woman was merely trying to scare Marcelo. Marcelo feels humiliated when the news is broadcast on television. Amanda had given him the lesson she intended, but something doesn't feel quite right. When she tells the pastor, he says that she has fallen in love with him. The next time Marcelo comes into the office, he informs her that he has changed. What happened to him yesterday has convinced him that she was correct. He needs to start looking for true love rather than one-night affairs. Having stated that, he goes out with Karen. He arrives at Amanda's house drunk late at night. She talks through the door to keep him from seeing her. Marcelo tells Karen that he proposed to her and that they will marry this week. He does, however, admit to being in love with Amanda. He couldn't help but fall for her, despite the fact that she is not his sort of woman and is married. He is marrying Karen since he knows she will never be his. They both cried and walked away without saying anything else. Then the big day arrives, the wedding day. Outside the church, Amanda and Marcelo meet. Amanda tries to tell him the truth but ultimately decides against it. Before the wedding begins, they share an intense hug. Marcelo is asked by the priest if he accepts Karen as his legally married wife. Everyone expects him to respond, but he never does. Amanda sneezes, and her false dentures slip out of her mouth. Marcelo ultimately realizes the truth as he removes her wig. The next scene cuts to a few years later. Amanda and Marcelo have 3 children and are expecting their 4th. They seem to be living a happy life with their family. Subscribe and turn on the notifications to watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.